Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Next Reason webinar. We're going to talk about the migration strategies from Akamai Identity Cloud. Haley and I are going to discuss some of the strategies we've seen, some of the tooling we have, and it'll be a condensed session, and hopefully you'll get some value out of it. So to introduce myself, my name is Nate. I'm the CEO of Next Reason. We have been around since 2017. I'm an identity architect. I've been in the customer identity space for over a decade, and I'm based in Portland. And maybe Haley can introduce herself.
Sure. Hey, I'm Haley Lovett. I've also been with Next Reason for many years now, almost a decade. Formerly, I did work with Jan Rain, which was the company that was purchased by Akamai Identity Cloud. I'm our principal solutions architect here, and I've been working on solutions within the CIAM space for quite some time. I'm also based in Portland.
Thanks. Okay, so to cue up the session, what I want to do is just talk a little bit about what's happening. So Haley, maybe you can give us a bit of an overview of what Akamai has announced and exactly what people need to know about.
Yeah, sure. So Akamai has announced an end of life for the AIC Identity Cloud product. That means it's going away. So the timelines that we have highlighted here, first, they're going to phase out their social login products. So if you're using like login with Facebook, login with Google, support for that is going away. First, they're going to decommission the dashboard that they have to support configuration of that tool. That's going to happen first quarter of next year, 2026. By the end of next year, they are going to decommission that product, social login, which is called Engage sometimes too. That'll be completely gone. And then by the end of the following year, so that's December 31st, 2027, any Akamai Identity Cloud product will be decommissioned. So that means like your captured databases with all your users, anything that you're using with Akamai is slated for end of life 2027.
Yeah, and the deadline is rapidly approaching. But one of the things we wanted to talk about today is that we have been able to successfully migrate people from Akamai Identity Cloud onto new platforms, help them with their RFP process. And we have really seen this as an opportunity for people. It's an opportunity to figure out how to modernize a platform, how to shore up some security and compliance issues. Let's talk a little bit about what Next Reason brings to the table. As we mentioned, we've been around since 2017. We have a headquarters in North America. We also have teams in Brazil, and we have a team in the Philippines, which has been great because it allows us to cover all of the time zones globally. We can provide application onboarding services or architecture services in EMEA time zone or APAC or North America. And along with those teams, we essentially have over 45 identity consultants, engineers, operations people, support, et cetera. Throughout the company, we maintain SOC 2 Type 2 compliance, along with GDPR readiness, ITIL 4 certification for the support engineers, and identity best practices when it comes to OAuth 2.0, OpenID Connect, security event tokens, CAPE for interoperability, et cetera. And the other thing worth noting is that we've been working as a Akamai Identity Cloud partner for the last 7 years. So we are not only their primary and preferred professional service partner, but when they announced the end of life, they announced Next Reason as the official migration partner to help people migrate off of the platform. So when you dig into that, what that looks like is over the years, we've supported over 100 million profiles, either through migration or just general support. We've helped over 60 plus countries of origin. We've worked with over 10 global enterprises, and we offer a 24/7 support team. So there are a lot of tools and a lot of experience under our belt across pharma, energy, consumer packaged goods, the list goes on and on. All right, we essentially have 3 topics. We're going to talk a little bit about the complexities of Akamai Identity Cloud. So like, what are the primary things that people should be looking at, paying attention to, or areas that when we come in to help customers, like these are the first places we go to look. We're also going to talk a little bit about what the different migration types are and what are some of the toolings available that either you can build or that we already have out of the box. And then, of course, we'll talk a little bit about a migration plan, like what that might look like, why Next Reason has been successful, and then a bit of an exclusive offer at the end. So stay tuned for that. Let's get into some of the complexities. Haley, when you work with some of these customers, I imagine there's a few like high ticket items that you go to right away and you start digging into because they are just very proprietary to Akamai, or they just tend to have the most complexity. Can you walk us through some of those items?
Yeah, for sure. So we've kind of categorized what we see as four primary challenges or categories of challenges. You may have more, it kind of depends on the complexity of your individual integration, but these are some of the top level big ones. And the first one is flow files. And so Akamai has this concept of the flow file that runs, what's going to happen for different user journeys, like sign in and registration, what fields are going to be on what forms, how data is mapped. There's a concept of computed logic within those flows that can set some values automatically. Those flow files hold translations. And we see customers that have, a single flow file that's used for every single application. But Akamai Identity Cloud also has the capability for you to have many, many flows. We've seen in the neighborhood of hundreds as well. So looking at those first to say, how complicated are these? How different are these? How is that logic going to transfer to a new provider? Can it transfer to a new provider? Are there some gaps here? And also, like, what can be condensed? So sometimes, you've just replicated flow files over time, and there may not be all that much difference in those experiences. So depending on the vendor that you're migrating to, that path might look different, but really an assessment of your current state for flow files and what logic is sitting there is one of the first places that we want to look, just to see how complex is this landscape. The next thing is consent management. So Akamai kind of has a built-in legal acceptances feature that a lot of customers utilize. It's stored in a plural structure, which can also be a problem from a data structure standpoint, moving to a new provider. But we see migration as an opportunity to take a step back and look at your current consent management practice and see if there's some opportunities for improvement. If the vendor you're migrating to can maybe meet some of your current needs, as well as maybe some additional needs around tracking universal consent and preferences, or if maybe there's even an opportunity to bring in an additional vendor to augment your consent management solution. So consent management is a big one we want to look at. And because it's tied to some compliance things, we want to make sure that that's handled really carefully and that you don't, omit like transferring user opt-ins or opt-outs or consents there. So that's another big one. The third challenge is not as much related to like the technical integration and the user journey as it is logistical. So like, what does your own rollout look like today? So do you have many apps spread across different countries that are all integrated directly into Akamai Identity Cloud? Have you used the hosted login to integrate, or is everyone API? And how much sway do you have with your individual markets to be able to say, okay, you're going to roll out at this time? And do they have the resources to do that, to make code changes? So yes, that challenge is around, do you have the resources available to make that phased rollout? Do you have team members that can coach them through the changes that they need to make? Is there going to be some friction to some markets around bringing in additional development resources if that's needed? We know everyone has their own code release schedules. That can be a problem. So that logistical piece can be one of the most time-consuming parts of a migration. We have enterprise-level customers that have hundreds of applications. You can be looking at potentially many months or longer of coordinating with those teams in order to make that rollout happen successfully. And then the last, not the last challenge, but the last primary challenge is upstream, downstream systems, how your data is flowing within your system. So, are you listening to Akamai webhooks today for changes in the user data? Are you using any of their connectors that they have today? So do you need to replicate those? Can some go away? Is there a like for like feature in the new provider? Another big thing that we've seen around data lookups and management is around, API rate limiting. So how's that going to play into your new system? And are there some ways that you can, again, refine your current system and potentially make some improvements there?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know that the more connected, more various connected applications and integrations you have, the more just there is to coordinate in general. So I would imagine that, when people talk about migrations, there's generally two ways that people talk about it. They talk about it in like, hey, we migrate the data, we do a bulk migration, or we cut over on the fly. Can you talk us through the various migration strategies and what they could be used for, when they're best used, and when they maybe don't work out?
Yeah, for sure. So when we're talking about migration in this context, we mean the literal user data migration from one platform to another. Because there are many other pieces of a migration to a new provider, like configuration and process and things like that, that are kind of handled in the discussions and the planning around the slide that we just talked about. So yeah, when we talk about user data migration from one platform to another, the first and kind of one shot kind of migration that we look at is what we consider a bulk migration. So this is just export all users from one system in bulk in that one or in small sections and import into the new system at one time. It's a single shot. There might be a small delta migration after, but this is really a one-stop cutover. You deprecate the old system, you turn on the new system. Sometimes this can mean that there's potentially like a little bit of downtime for users interacting with the service. This is a great fit if you have like a really tight timeline, or you have a small number of applications, or a very centrally managed integration point for the application. So it's easy for you to kind of make that switch. This is not always as best of a fit for trying to coordinate many, many applications at one time. We'll talk about some strategies for those in a minute, but this is kind of move everything at once, turn off old system, get new system going. Not a lot of room for error in this one, but it's very effective. The next type of migration is more of like a trickle migration. We call this just-in-time migration. This is actually sort of a end user initiated, although they don't know it's happening, migration. So what this one does is you sort of have both systems happening kind of in parallel. An end user will interact with the old system. At that time, when they do a login, the service on the back end will migrate the profile to the new system. So new interactions for that user will interact with the new systems. This requires some parallel coordination of the two systems, so maybe some data synchronization. And this one typically, in my experience, also usually runs for like a time boxed period, at which time when that ends, so you say we're going to do just in time for 6 months, get as many users migrated as possible. This is great because it does not interrupt their ability to sign in at all. So no interruption to their service. After that time box window, you might say like, okay, we're going to stop the just-in-time migration. We're going to deprecate the old system, and we're going to do kind of a bulk migration for any users that didn't get migrated. This is also an opportunity where you could say, hey, some of these profiles are not active, so maybe we won't migrate them. Maybe we'll condense our overall user set. But yeah, so just-in-time can be a great option. We've seen this a lot when we have maybe a new application or a new property that's coming on board to an existing ecosystem where they were using one provider, they're going to come on and use a different provider, and so you're just migrating like a small subset of users. And then the other type of migration we want to talk about, which is much more common for enterprise-sized customers, is a phased migration. And so this is really kind of a batch approach where you say, hey, this set of applications maybe is using OIDC, maybe this set of applications is using API to connect. And we can say like, okay, these simple applications, we're gonna all migrate at the same time, these 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 or whatever. We're gonna do a user migration for them, a cutover for them at that one point in time, run a QA period and close that, and then move on to the next phase. This can be a really great approach for extremely complex systems. So if your integrations are varied, you have a lot of applications, you maybe have some markets that you might have to move around within your timeline. This can be a great option for that. And again, less impact to the end users because both systems remain online for a certain period of time. And again, you have that flexibility where maybe you will struggle with engaging certain markets, and you can kind of show a few pilot markets in the beginning and show the success there, and then help with that, like developing run books, rolling it out to other applications, and so on. And then as we look at those migration plans, there is some tooling that can be required to enable those. One that is common is this idea of a data sync. So in a couple of those examples I mentioned, like, so both systems are going to run at the same time, but what does that mean for user data? How are you going to have make sure that that's accurate? So one thing that we've done for customers in the past is developed a data sync tool that enables you to sync a two-way sync or a one-way sync depending on your needs, to make sure that, like, you know, a user that's been migrated to the new system makes an update to their profile, that makes it back to the old system, or vice versa. If maybe passwords are still being managed in your AIC record for some period of time, update there gets updated to the new system so that things stay in sync, at least for that period of time. The idea is that, you know, always best practice is to have sort of one system of record. This would be sort of a temporary thing that you do for several months or however long that phased migration is going to occur. Another tool that we have provided is the bulk export script. So kind of work with the team for an iterative process on what data is going to be migrated and how into the new system. And along with that, we've definitely done some consulting around where does data best fit in the new system? How can it be queried quickly? Those kinds of things. So some consulting around like new data structure. And then also we can provide the actual migration. So we can run the migration on our side, either as an export that you then hand over to your new vendor, or we can do export and import, and help do that in a secure and fast way.
Great. That's a lot of great options. So obviously every customer is just a little bit different. No one is exactly the same. Everyone has different landscapes. And for better or for worse, the Akamai Identity Cloud system is incredibly flexible. And so no two customer implementation is exactly the same. So with that, knowing that each one is just a little bit different from the next, can you walk us through how we would approach like phasing out a migration plan?
Yeah, and I love this illustration of these. On the left, we see some basic milestones, and on the top, we have kind of divided into phases. And so in that initial phase and engagement, you're going to sort of look at that discovery. So we're going to do things like look at your flow files and how complex they are. Look at the new requirements in the new vendor system or vendors if you're migrating into multiple places, and make some decisions around the deployment and configuration within the new vendor. So that'd be phase one. It's mostly like assessment and planning. Phase two, we'd be looking at actual implementation work, functional, non-functional testing, and start testing some of the migration plans. And then in phase three, that's really where you're actually going to start looking at deploying. So you're running your migration scripts or starting the migration effort if it's a phased approach. You're going to cut over and go live to the new provider, start running any data sync if that needs to be happening. And then you're also going to, we're going to enable any transition to your support team so that you can operationalize the new service.
Great. Yeah, thanks for walking us through that. So, at this point, I kind of wanted to get into why Next Reason. What is it that we bring to the table, and why would you want to partner with a system integrator like Next Reason to help facilitate the migration? And I think it really is best summarized in four categories or four buckets. The first one is our strong industry network. So because of the fact that we provide vendor agnostic CIAM services, we are an official partner to Okta Auth0, Ping Identity, the Talos One Welcome platform, Login Radius, and we have capabilities and have worked with others like Microsoft, IBM, et cetera. Not to mention a partnership with OneTrust, which is a consent management platform. So all of these ties into the industry and some of the best vendors on the market make us really capable of being on your side. We really don't care. We care about you. We don't care about where you end up. We want it to be the best fit for you, even if you're building it yourself. So because of the fact that we have so much strong connections to the network and our partnerships are so strong and we have official agreements with them, we're able to sort of coach and get the support where we're needed to help tailor where your solution ends up. And the second bucket here is expertise you can trust. Look, we've been doing this a long time. We're one of the only, if not the only, services company that is exclusively dedicated to customer identity. That means that the requirements you have around high volumes of traffic, very varied use cases with customer acquisition, taking a customer from an unknown to a known. All of these different scenarios are things that we've worked with for years and years. And so we really are a helping hand that you can rely on. The third bucket is, of course, this like security and compliance bucket. We're an extremely security focused company. We have monthly trainings for everyone in the company. We do an annual SOC 2 Type 2 audit. We comply with GDPR. We're constantly evolving our learning and investing in support and enablement for the staff. So it's really a security and compliance led organization. And then lastly, as I mentioned before, we provide around the clock support. So if you're based in Europe, for example, or South Africa, you're going to get time zone that aligns with your working hours. And it isn't going to be, just tier one support. It's going to be a seasoned solutions architect who's working with you to help design, plan, and then ultimately, if it goes there, help build things and help actually migrate that data. And then lastly, what can you do to get a hold of us? Well, check out our website, nextreason.com. We also have a partner page where it talks about all of the content that Haley and I just walked through. If you want to fill out a contact form, there's one on the website, or you can just email me directly, nate@nextreason.com, if you have any questions or you want to set up a free 1-hour consultation. This is really a casual chat. Reach out to us. I will, or Haley will be available. We can talk with you about, what does your current landscape look like? What are your plans given the timeline? How might we be able to help you? And really just give as much value as we possibly can. And with that concludes our session. I want to thank Haley so much for offering your time. Thanks so much for walking us through some of those details. If you have any questions at all, check out our website, nextreason.com, and email me if you have anything else you want to chat about. All right. Thanks, everyone.